Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Now it's been a couple weeks since I've done a video, and I apologize for that. And I also remember that in the last video I wasn't really crazy about the idea of showing a video of all the handwork that went into smoothing out the imperfections that resulted from the CNC carve of this body, like the misalignments I discussed in my last video. But I've gone ahead and done that work, and I've filmed it, so I think I'm going to show it to you because it is kind of interesting, believe it or not, some parts of it at least. So anyways, that's going to be the subject of this video, and I will show you the typical montage of different processes in a minute. You'll notice that perhaps you'll see some holes that I've drilled into the body. These are the holes for the screws to hold the neck and the body together. And you'll see back here, those are the little recesses for the ferrules. I've done that. I also, you'll notice right here, I've drilled a hole for the pickup wire to pass into the control cavity. And then I've also drilled a hole right here. That's for the ground wire that goes under the bridge to ground the instrument. And those wires all pass into this chamber, of course, so you can see right there where they come through. I also drilled the jack hole. It's like about a 3/4 inch hole for the jack. That went pretty well, although there were some, I'll discuss this on the other side, there were like a couple of minor issues, but it doesn't matter so much because this whole thing is covered by a jack plate. Now, one thing I want to discuss before we get going that I'm really happy about, it's the weight of this base. Because I have drilled some holes in it finally and can hang it from my little fish hook scale, I was able to weigh the base, and the base is 3.05 pounds. Which is fairly light for a base body, I have to say. And the main reason for that is my choice to make this body thinner than standard base bodies. As I've mentioned before, a standard base is usually from anywhere between like 40 and 45 millimeters thick, and I've made this base 35 millimeters thick. And it's making the base thinner and shaving off that extra weight. I think that's what's giving me most of my weight savings on this base, because otherwise it's a standard size body. It's not like a mini body or a dinky or anything like that. It's just thinner, and that makes it lighter. And to give you a sense of comparison, I'm going to show you this T-style base that I bought from Warmouth a long time ago, many years ago. I just haven't gotten around to doing anything with it yet. I want to make a 6-string T base out of it. But as you'll see, it's kind of the standard thickness relative to the body I'm working on now. It's probably about between 42 and 45 millimeters. It's very similar to the body I'm working on now insofar as the body core is basswood, just like the base I'm working on now. And it has a figured top. This wood is called paduk. It's, believe it or not, it's bright orange. When I first bought it, it was bright orange. It's supposed to be, but very much like this body I'm working on now, sun exposure changes the color. That being said, this body weighs about 3.35 pounds. And I should add that this body is chambered. It's not solid. It has a bunch of voids carved out underneath the top precisely to reduce weight. And even so, with all that sort of those extra features, this body weighs more than the one I'm working on now. So I'm really, really happy about that. And I think that this base could very well clock in at about 7 pounds total, maybe 6.5 for all I know. We'll see. Anyhow, I've got some clips to show you of all the little minor detailed processes I did with respect to smoothing out the sides and the imperfections from the CNC carve, and then drilling some holes in preparation for what are going to be the final steps. I'm very close. I'm some sanding away, some sandpaper away from being able to put a finish on this body. And that's going to require some thought too. I still haven't determined which type of finish I'm going to use, whether I'm going to go with an epoxy or go with a lacquer type, more clear finish like crystal lac. I've mentioned that a lot. The crystal lac is very transparent. It will give me the closest approximation to the raw color of this Purple Heart that I can probably hope for. The epoxy would darken it up. At the same time, and as I've discovered, basswood, because it's not very dense, is very prone to dents and scratches. You can literally scratch it with your fingernail and you got to sand it out. So you have to handle it fairly carefully. So I'm naturally concerned about the finish I use, and I might go with a strategy where I do epoxy on the back, like Z-epoxy even, because that's a very hard, durable finish, and something like Crystalac just on the top to get kind of like the aesthetic effect I'm going for. But we'll see, that's off in the distance. First, I need to show you how I smoothed some sides and drilled some holes. So let's get to that. Now, the first order of business, obviously, is to fix some of the issues that I encountered and discussed in the last video as a function of carving the body on my CNC machine. Now, as I've mentioned, I had some serious kind of alignment issues, not serious, but they were noticeable enough to result in little areas of underhang or overhang toward the bottom of the base body. So what I'm doing here is I have the base at my router table, and I'm using what they call a flush trim bit, which is equipped with a bearing up at the top. And what I'm doing is I'm using the top of the base body, which I know to be kind of straight and what it should be, as a reference, and I'm running the body through the router table using that bearing as a guide to shave off any overhang or any of the tab remnants. Now, when it comes to underhang, that's going to require files and a lot of handwork because I can't use this same tool to fix that problem. So what I'm doing now is just making some adjustments and making sure I've smoothed out everything I can using the table router. So as you can see here, I've grabbed a standard half round file, and what I'm doing is at the seam where the top half meets the bottom half, where they're out of alignment, I'm just trying to smooth that seam down and get the two halves to match and blend in nicely. So I'm doing the same right now for the neck heel, and I'll do the same for the lower horn. You can see I'm using just kind of one of these inexpensive pieces of carpet. I think you can get them at IKEA. They're like $2 to clamp the base to the table because I don't want to be scratching it or otherwise dinging it because, as I mentioned, basswood is soft. Now, no video about woodworking would be complete or accurate or realistic without showing someone doing some hand sanding. There's just no way to avoid it, even if you have fancy equipment like a CNC machine and nice power tools. One thing I would like to emphasize is the importance of proper respiratory protection. Sawdust is pretty nasty, so you should always be masked up when you're generating it. Now in this scene, I'm going to be drilling a hole between the pickup cavity and the control cavity. And to do that, I'm using this little right angle attachment that I've got bolted into my my cordless drill. And I'm just using these very stubby bits, starting off with a small diameter bit to punch the hole through. And then I'll just increase the diameter, keep increasing the size of the hole until it's the size I need it to be. After that, I'm going to drill a hole between the bridge recess and the control cavity, and this is for the ground wire. To do this, I'm using a very long, very thin drill bit, and you'll also notice I've got a piece of PVC pipe, and that's to keep me from scuffing up the body or having some kind of mishap damage the wood. So what you're seeing in this sequence, I've taken a ferrule and I'm popping it into each recess and using a hole punch to create a little divot or a guide hole for when I take the piece over to the drill press and drill the holes for real. But I need the ferrule to give me like an accurate reference to the center of the hole because I want this thing to bolt together smoothly. So now I'm at the drill press, and once again, I'm using those little guide holes to guide the bit into proper position so I can drill the holes. When I use the drill press, I'm pretty slow and deliberate. I use a up and down motion. There's always a risk when you punch through the other side of getting some tear out. It's very hard to avoid, so it's best to go slow. So I'm just going to do that until I've gotten through and have my proper drill holes for the neck. Okay, in this next segment, I'm going to be showing you one of the more stressful operations when it comes to building a guitar or a bass body, and that is drilling the hole for the input jack. As you can see, I've started off with a small diameter bit. I've measured everything very carefully. It's dead center in the body. It's where it needs to be, but I want to slowly increase that diameter because if I don't, I run the risk of something going horribly amiss. And it's because this is one of the last operations in terms of building a body. Maybe that's why it's as stressful as it is. So now I'm using what they call a step bit. It basically steps down at preset diameters. I have to be very careful because I'm shooting for something in the neighborhood of 3/4 of an inch, maybe 5/8. So I have to keep an eye on it, be very deliberate and go very slow. I have to kind of check the bit every once in a while to make sure I've reached the right diameter before I move on to the next step, which is to take a Forstner bit and finish the hole. Because the step bit produces this kind of pyramid effect. It doesn't drill to the same diameter all the way down. You have to finish it off using a Forstner bit, and that's what I'm doing here. So I'm just, again, very slowly and deliberately going through and drilling my way until I break through. Now I've taken the input jack itself with the plate, and I'm just testing it to make sure that it looks okay, that it's fine cosmetically, which it is. It came out fine. So, time for a final inspection. We have a hole for the pickup conductor between the pickup cavity and the control cavity. We have a hole for the ground wire. We have holes for the neck screws, and we have a hole for the input jack. So that's pretty much it. This base is ready for the next steps. Okay, so there you have it. If nothing else, that assortment of little bits and bobs showing handwork should illustrate that even with CNC, building an instrument requires a ton of handwork, and it always will. There's just no escaping it. Even though I was recovering from some sort of bad results from the CNC process, I still would have been doing most of what you saw in that video in terms of sanding, filing, what have you, all the manual drilling, all that kind of stuff. There is just no getting around it when you build instruments. That's just part of the deal. The only thing I really need to mention in this post-mortem is that all the corrections I made came out very nicely, and I'm mostly happy with them. There are some things you can see where clearly, to take care of the underhang, I had to compromise the perfect verticality of some of the sides. Like on the horns here, you see they kind of dip down a little bit. To be honest, I'm fine with that. When I look at the original I'm modeling this after, my modulus quantum base, it has sort of the same kinds of things where it's not sort of perfectly vertical or the sides aren't perfectly straight. But at this point, the body has pretty much all of the tool marks removed, and I think I have maybe one final round of sanding at probably 400 grit. And then of course I'll have a little bit of brown resulting from that, from revealing the interior of the Purple Heart, and I'll have to let it sit around for a couple days and get its final suntan. But I do believe my next step is to start applying finish to this body. I discussed earlier, I have not completely nailed down my strategy yet. I've tested some finishes on the scrap that was left over when I carved out the body, which has the same Purple Heart obviously and the same basswood. So I've had some preliminary looks at the potential finished product in terms of finishes, but I just have not quite decided yet what I'm going to go with, whether it's full epoxy or a combination of epoxy and a lacquer-like finish such as Crystal-Lac, or all Crystal-Lac. We'll see. I've got some thinking to do. Not sure what the next video is going to be, but I'm guessing it's going to involve a foam brush and some finish of some sort, and me up in the mostly dust-free bathroom painting this body. So hopefully that's the next installment. If not, maybe it'll be something about the neck. I'm simultaneously working on that, doing some redesign and some rethinking. So I'm not sure, but until then, I look forward to talking to you again and showing you the next step in the evolution of this build. Take care.